In this video we're going to show you how to model and sculpt the lioness that you can see here. So let's just go to File, Close. So let's start by opening an existing file. So we're going to open the lioness vector file. So here we have a set of vectors that represent a lioness, and we're going to use these vectors in order for us to create our relief model. Now before we start creating any components, we're just going to go over into our job setup. We're just going to check over our modeling resolution. As we're about to create components, what I want to do is just increase our modeling resolution to very high so that we can maximize the amount of points that we have within our job, just to give us a good quality model. So go ahead and press OK. It's worth noting as well that you can see the size of our lioness is just a little bit smaller than our job space, which is perfect because that just ensures that we are again maximising the amount of points that we've got within our job for our model. Okay, so we're just going to jump into the 3D view. Now before we go ahead and create any components, let's just take a look at our layers list. So you can see we've organised all of the parts, the main crucial parts for the lioness, into their different body parts, and we're going to do the same for our levels in terms of our 3D content, but we'll do that as and when we get to new parts. So we're going to go into our levels tab over here, and we're just going to right click on level 1, and we're going to rename this, and we're going to call this one tail. Press enter to accept that, and then we're also going to set the combine mode here to merge. Okay then, so we're just going to tilt our 3D view, and we're ready to start creating our first component, which is going to be the tail. So we're going to select this vector here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go into the Create Rounded Shape Components tool. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the angle handle, and we're just going to drag that up so we can create our angle. Okay, so you can see that's at 90 degrees. So I want quite a high angle just to give us a nice tall walls, but we're just going to drop that down slightly. So maybe make that somewhere like this. Okay, so that looks pretty good. But then what we're going to do is we're going to look at shrinking down the overall height of our part. Okay, so this handle here, we can see it's currently at 0.362. So let's just bring that down because we want to make sure that we are creating a relief. We want to make it kind of low level relief. So we don't want too much height in here. Okay, so that looks pretty good, and generally when you are creating shapes, you're just going to go around and play with the handles until you kind of get the right shape and look that you're looking for. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So what we can do is move on to the back legs. Again, to try and keep organised, let's just insert another level. We'll just set the combine mode of that to merge so that it blends in with the tail. And then we'll give this a name, so rename that one, and we're going to call this one back leg. And then just enter to accept that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this vector here, whilst we're still in the same tool. All we need to do is just apply our angle. So again, just increase that somewhere like that, but then we want to just knock the actual height down because you can see that is extortionate at the moment. So you can see it's at 0.8467, so we're just going to bring that right down, and I'm just kind of looking at the model just to try and get a good kind of eye for how it's blending into the tail there. It's not too bad, so we'll just kind of leave that as it is. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look at creating the detail. So I've got another vector here, and then if I shift and hold this vector here, we're going to look at creating a shape on top of the component that we've just created there, just to create a little bit of definition and detail. So again, let's just use that angle, and we're just going to increase that angle. So again, I really want tall walls here. But then I'm going to kind of reduce that height, so we're just going to shrink it down, but those tall walls are actually going to help us to create that harsh kind of definition line, which you can start to see come through there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Right then, so let's just put that back into the top view. Then we'll go back to our levels at the top here, right click and then insert a new level. Right click, set the combine mode to merge again so it blends in with the rest of our composite model. I'm just going to rename this one body and press enter to accept that. Okay, so we're going to take this vector here, and again, let's just put that in a view where we can see the effect of applying our shape. Okay, so pulling that up. Okay, so we want tall walls again, but we're just going to knock down or squish the overall shape height so we get more of a relief, and it kind of blends nicely with the rest of our shapes that we've created. Okay, so something like that looks okay. Right then, so let's just do the details. We'll take this vector here, and again, let's just increase our angle here. So we're just going to pull that up, maybe not so high there. And then we're just going to take the overall shape height and just reduce that down. So we just want a little bit of definition. So we want this kind of visible line underneath there, like to create that kind of muscle. And you can see that's pretty good. Right then, so we'll just put that back to the top here. We're going to move on now to the front leg. So again, let's go into our levels, insert a new level, right click, set the combine mode of that to merge, and then let's rename that one to front leg, and then press enter to accept that. And then we'll just twiddle our view again, like so, and we're just going to take the outer vector that we've got for that front leg, and again let's just look at creating our first sort of shape. Okay, so we're just going to bring that up. So again, I'm just wanting the kind of harsh walls on the edge, but then I'm going to really kind of reduce that down, and I'm just like looking just by eye at how this is blending into the previous component. Okay, so it's not too bad. Right then, so let's just move on. So we're going to take this vector here, shift and select this vector here, and we've also got this vector here. So we're really creating some muscle definition over here now. So again, let's just tilt that view, and we're just going to increase our angle. Okay, so you can start to see that's coming through. We'll just pull that right up again. And then we're just going to take that, and we're just going to reduce it down. Let's just twiddle that just to take a look, perhaps move out. Another thing we could do is just undraw our vectors just to see how it's looking now. There are a lot of harsh lines here at the moment, but obviously that's not a problem for now, because what we can do is we can look at sculpting and blending all of these shapes in together to make a more sort of natural looking shape. Okay, so that's okay for now. So we'll just put that back to the top view. We'll just switch our vectors back on. I'm going to go back to our levels. Just going to right click on this level and insert a new level. Right click, set the combine mode of that to merge. And then finally a last right click there, and we're just going to give that a name, call it head, and then we'll just press enter to accept that. And then we'll take this shape here, and again let's just increase our angle over here. Okay, so maybe want to just reduce that a little bit, and then we'll go and just reduce the height as well, and just twiddle that around to take a look. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll take this vector here, and again let's just add in that detail on top of the face. Okay, so let's just knock that back ever so slightly. And again, we'll just reduce that. So we want to create definition there, so we don't want to reduce it too much. Okay, so something like that looks okay. And then at this point, I guess, if we just undraw our vectors, we can take a look at the lioness as a whole, just to kind of see how it's looking. You can look at all different views. If you wanted to use the view at the top over here, you can twiddle that around. We're just going to put that back to the top there and just click out. I think I'm happy with this, and this is very much an iterative process of tweaking with different heights and different angles until you were happy with what you've got. So at this stage, I think I'm happy with this, and I'm happy to kind of move on now to a more permanent stage. So we're just going to close out here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our components, and I'm just going to insert a new level. Okay, and we're just going to rename this level, and I'm going to call this one sculpt. What I'm going to do is we're actually going to look at creating one component that's based on all of the components and how it's built up within our component tree here that I can then go on to edit or manipulate. So back in our design tab, with ensuring that my sculpt level is the active level, it's active because it's bold, it's selected. We can go over to our design tab over here. We're going to click on this button, and that's basically going to create a snapshot component of everything that we can see currently in our composite model. And so when I do that, it's going to create that model for us. So then when we go back into our components tab, we can see it's created a copy of the visible model. And then if we just go and right click on this level, we'll just use this option here to say show only this, we can see that we just have one component here. So it's like one baked component that we're using. And then we can go ahead and create edits to this, whilst at the same time we still have access to all of the individual building blocks that we use to create our model should we want to go back to it. So let's just put that back into the top view there. And then at this stage, what we're going to do is we're just going to save this model. So we're going to go to File, Save As. We're going to call this one Lioness Basic Model. I'll save that so you can access that in the project folder. Okay, so to start the kind of finesse process, we're going to have a look at applying a very simple smooth filter across the entire lioness or the entire component. So with this component selected, and if we wanted to, we could actually just rename this whilst we're here. We're just going to call this one Lioness to Edit. And with that component selected, we're going to go into the design tab, and we're going to use this option over here to apply smoothing filter to selected components, and that will just apply a general smooth over according to how much we increase that in the slider. So we can put a maximum smooth, and you'll see how it just really kind of smooths out those harsh lines. That's a little bit too much. I actually want to have a bit more control over that, which I can do with the sculpting tools. So I'm just going to knock that down a little. Perhaps let's have a look at the result of that. Okay, so that's not too bad. It's done a little bit of a smooth over, but not too much. And you'll also note that we've got the option here, preserve transparency, switched on. And the reason that we've got that on is so that when we do apply the smooth over, we don't want the model to actually blend into the modeling plane. So that's why we've got that switched on there. Okay, so let's go ahead and press OK to apply those changes. And now we're about to go into our sculpting tools. So we want to select our component again, and then we're going to go over to this icon here to sculpt the visible model. So we're just going to take a moment to talk through the form. So at the top here, we've got 5 ways that we can interact with the model. And we're going to be looking at all of these options shortly, and these are predominantly the tools that we're going to be using to sculpt our lioness. Then this section here, we have the option to use a component brush, and this is where you can export any component that you create as a custom brush for use with the deposit and remove tools. Now we're actually not going to cover this option in this video, however we do have a dedicated tutorial that covers this option in great detail, and we'll pop that in the related videos section for this tutorial. Then we've got 3 sliders to adjust the diameter, the strength and the smoothness on whatever tool that we've got selected. And then we have the option to preserve the transparency of the model, and this is the same as what I mentioned earlier in the smooth tool. And so with this checked, we're only applying changes to the model itself, and with this option unchecked, we can actually blend the model into the modeling plane. Then we have the option to show the visible model, which is useful if you want to see other components in your job that aren't currently part of your sculpting session. Then we have sculpt mode, and in this example we're just going to use normal, which will allow the brush to average the high and low points as I drag the brush along the model. Here we have the overlay image option. So if you had modelled the lioness from an image where I traced the vectors around the image and then created those components from those vectors, at this stage in the sculpt mode I could look at opting to switch on the bitmap, and that would be overlaid onto my model, which makes it easy for me to sculpt my model whilst looking at the image directly on top of the component. Now, as I don't have a bitmap, this option is greyed out. And then finally at the bottom we have the option to add in a preset, and all this does is it allows you to save brush settings. So based on the actual brush, along with the diameter, strength and smoothness, you can actually save those settings as a preset that you can always come back to in new sessions of the software. Right then, so let's jump straight in. So we're going to start by looking at the smooth tool. So that's this one here. Now it's worth noting each one of these tools are numbered. Okay, so we've got smooth, we have smudge, we've got deposit or adding, we've got remove, and then we've also got the undo brush. Okay, we're going to look at all of these options. So we're going to start by looking at the smooth. So kind of similar to the smooth filter, except we're defining exactly where we want to actually create our smooth. Now at the moment I'm just moving my mouse around. Okay, I'm not actually activating anything. In order for me to activate the actual brush, then I just need to click with my left mouse button, hold it down, and then move my brush around until I'm happy with how much we're smoothing. Okay, so I'm going to press down with my left mouse button and you'll see that I have a red circle, so I can see that we're kind of activating that brush there, and you can see that all I'm doing is just going back and forth, and we've really blended that join where the tail met in with the back leg. And that's all we do, is we just go back and forth just to try and eliminate those creases, or to try and blend areas together kind of at the bottom over here. Now if you wanted to decrease your brush size, if you just hold down Control and then use the scroll of your mouse, scroll it towards you, that will make that smaller, and then scrolling away will just make that larger. Okay, so I'm just going to go in there like so. Now it's worth noting as well that if you think that you're going to be doing sculpting full-time, or you're going to do it quite a lot, then you want to probably look at investing in a pen and tablet. You have a lot more control over a pen and tablet as opposed to a mouse. You're quite restricted in your movements when you're using a mouse to sculpt, so I totally recommend that you take a look at Wacom products. They do really good pen and tablet systems. Okay, so I'm just going to go around the edges now. So I'm happy with the smoothness that we've got here. So now we're going to move on to the smudge tool. And when you do sculpt models, like organic models that we're working with here, you are going to be going back and forth through the different brushes until you like the look of your finished or your finessed model. And it is very much an iterative process. You're going to be going back and forth and making changes and tweaks until you're happy with the overall appearance. Right, and so we're going to use the smudge tool. So I'm going to press Control, scroll my mouse towards me just to decrease that brush size. And what I'm going to do is the smudge tool, it's like pushing virtual clay. So when we push, we're actually like, imagine putting your thumb through clay and you're just pushing it away or pulling it towards you. That's what we're doing, and this is really good for creating details, creases, that sort of thing. So for example, in the tail, if we just go in there and you can see we're just pushing that material to create a crease, and then I'm just going to increase my brush size, okay, and I'm actually going to push it back, okay, like so, and then again decrease, I'm just going to push it back, and you're just going to work your way through this until you like the look of it. Now let's say you didn't like this bit here, we could use the undo brush, and then you can just go over that and it will just undo what you've done there. I'm going to go back to the smooth and I'm just going to soften that a little bit. Okay, so it looks something like that. That's not looking too bad. So I'm just going to work my way around again with that smudge tool, and we're just going to look at kind of creating definition in the pores like here, and then again just bringing that back by pulling that back and creating more definition, pulling that back. Okay, and then we'll come over here. Now to twiddle your view, if you hold both of your mouse buttons down and then move your mouse, that's how you can twiddle. And obviously to zoom, I am just scrolling in there. Right then, so again, let's just create some definition over here. So I'm just going to decrease my brush. To alter your strength, use the down arrow key. Okay, so just going to decrease the strength there on that smooth, just to soften this ever so lightly. We'll go back into the smudge tool. Okay, so now we're going to look at the deposit and the remove tool. So it's basically add and subtract. So we add material, we subtract material. So we'll start with the add option over here. So I'm going to decrease my brush size. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to look at creating an eyeball. Okay, so I'm just clicking, and I can just click continuously to kind of add that. Or what I could do is just kind of going like round, very small motions just to bring that out, and you can start to see this is actually coming through there. Again, just bring that out a bit more like so, and then just to soften that a little, we could just go over with a little bit of a smooth just to soften that eye. But you can see obviously we can add detail like so. Let's go to the remove tool. Okay, and I'm just going to increase that brush. I'm just going to look at just creating a bit more detail in the ear over here. So just removing that. And then I'm just going to go over with a smudge tool, might increase my diameter. And this is where you can just kind of go in and make tweaks and changes to how that looks. Okay, so I've realised I've used the add tool when in fact I wanted to use the remove tool. So a simple Control Z on your keyboard can take you back some steps, which is handy. Okay, so I'm kind of happy with what we've got here. Now, if at any stage you are happy with your progress so far, you can always press keep, and then it will just save it in this kind of sculpted state. And then when you're finally happy with everything, you can go ahead and press OK to come out of the sculpting tools and accept all of your changes, in which case we're going to do that. We're going to go ahead and press OK, and we can see our finished lioness model. So hopefully that's given you a few tips on how to use the sculpting tools in Aspire. So we'll just go ahead and save that file now. So we'll call that one lioness sculpt. That way you can have access to all the 3 different files, so your vectors, the basic model before we sculpted it, and then the finished, finessed sculpted version of the lioness. So thank you for watching.